The alarm screamed through the research station like a dying animal. Dr. Marcus Chen stumbled from his sleeping quarters, still half-dressed, as red emergency lights bathed everything in an ominous glow. The metal corridors of Research Station Omega vibrated beneath his feet as he ran toward the command center. "What's happening?" he shouted over the noise to Dr. Sarah Williams, who was frantically typing at her workstation. "Massive energy readings coming from the outer rim," she replied without looking up. "Something big just dropped out of hyperspace." "Really big?" Marcus grabbed the nearest console and pulled up the sensor data. His blood ran cold. 3 massive ships hung in space around their small research station, each one easily 10 times the size of anything humanity had ever built. The ships were sleek, organic-looking things that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. "Are they responding to our hails?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer from Sarah's expression. "Nothing. Complete radio silence." "But, Marcus, there's something else. The ships aren't just sitting there. They're scanning us. Deep scans. Like they're looking for something specific." The station shuddered as something docked with their main airlock. Marcus felt his heart rate spike as he realized their situation had just become much worse. Whatever was on those ships was coming aboard. "Should we activate the defense systems?" Sarah asked, her voice barely steady. Marcus almost laughed. Their defense systems consisted of a few mining lasers and some basic shields designed to deflect space debris. Against ships this advanced, they might as well throw rocks. "No," he said quietly. "If they wanted us dead, we'd already be dead. Let's see what they want." The airlock cycled with a soft hiss, and footsteps echoed down the corridor toward the command center. Marcus and Sarah stood frozen as the steps grew closer. When the beings finally appeared in the doorway, Marcus had to remind himself to breathe. They were tall, maybe 8 feet, with elongated limbs and skin that shifted between silver and blue depending on the light. Their faces were almost human-like, but with larger eyes that seemed to hold depths of intelligence that made Marcus feel like a child. 3 of them entered the command center, moving with fluid grace that suggested they were perfectly comfortable in the artificial gravity. The center figure stepped forward and spoke in perfect English. "Dr. Marcus Chen and Dr. Sarah Williams. We have been monitoring your research for some time." Sarah made a small sound of surprise. "You know our names?" "We know much about humanity," the being replied. "Your species has reached a critical juncture. We are the Valdari, and we have come because your survival depends on the choice you make in the next 72 hours. Marcus found his voice. "Our survival? What are you talking about?" The Valdari gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the air between them. The image showed Earth, but not as Marcus remembered it. The planet was surrounded by a massive fleet of ships, different from the Valdari vessels. These ships were angular, aggressive-looking, and there were thousands of them. "The hegemony," the Valdari explained. "They are a collective of species that believes the universe should be cleansed of what they call chaotic elements. Humanity has been classified as such an element." "Chaotic elements?" Sarah whispered. "Your species' tendency toward unpredictable innovation, emotional decision-making, and rapid adaptation. The hegemony sees these traits as dangerous to universal order. In 72 hours, their fleet will begin the systematic destruction of human civilization." Marcus stared at the hologram, watching as the massive fleet moved with mechanical precision. "Why are you telling us this? What can we possibly do against that?" The Valdari's large eyes focused on him with something that might have been hope. "Because humanity possesses something that no other species in the galaxy has ever developed. Something that could change the outcome of this war." "What?" Instead of answering directly, the Valdari turned toward the corridor they had entered from. "Zara, please join us." Marcus heard light footsteps approaching, and then a figure appeared in the doorway that made him question his sanity. She looked human, perfectly human, with dark hair and intelligent brown eyes. But there was something about the way she moved, the way she seemed to analyze everything around her with rapid glances, that suggested she was anything but ordinary. This is Zara, the Valdari said. She is the result of a project that your species unknowingly began 40 years ago. Zara stepped forward and smiled at Marcus, and he felt his heart skip a beat for reasons he didn't entirely understand. Hello, Marcus. I know this is confusing, but I need you to listen very carefully. I'm not entirely human, and I'm not entirely Valdari. I'm something new. What does that mean? Sarah asked, her scientific curiosity overriding her fear. Zara's expression became serious. 40 years ago, the Valdari made contact with a small group of human scientists. Not officially, not publicly, but secretly. They wanted to understand what made humanity so adaptable, so innovative. The scientists agreed to participate in an experiment. What kind of experiment? Marcus asked, though he was beginning to suspect he didn't want to know the answer. Genetic integration, Zara replied. Combining human and Valdari DNA to create a hybrid that could possess the best traits of both species. I am the result of that experiment. Marcus felt the room spin slightly. You're saying you're some kind of human-alien hybrid? The only one who survived, Zara said quietly. There were others, but the genetic combinations were too unstable. I was the single success. The lead Valdari stepped forward again. Zara possesses capabilities that neither species has alone. She can interface directly with both human and Valdari technology. Her mind can process information at speeds that match our computers while retaining the creative unpredictability that makes humans so formidable. And she's your weapon against this hegemony? Sarah asked. She could be, the Valdari replied. But only with human assistance. You see, there is something about the human brain, some quality in how you process emotional and logical information simultaneously, that cannot be replicated artificially. Zara has this quality, but she needs to be paired with a fully human partner to unlock her full potential. Marcus looked at Zara, who was watching him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. A partner for what? To pilot the most advanced ship ever constructed, she said. A vessel that combines human innovation with Valdari technology. It requires 2 pilots, one fully human and one hybrid. The ship's systems can't function without both. Why me? Marcus asked. I'm just a research scientist. I study stellar formations and cosmic radiation. I've never piloted anything more complicated than a transport shuttle. Zara's smile was sad but determined. Because your mind works differently than most humans. We've been monitoring your research, Marcus. The way you solve problems, the way you see patterns that others miss, the way you adapt to new information. You don't just think logically or just think creatively. You do both simultaneously, and that's exactly what we need. The Valdari brought up another holographic display, this one showing a ship unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. It was enormous, but graceful, with sections that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Parts of it were clearly Valdari in design, with those organic curves and pulsing lights. But other sections had the angular, functional appearance of human engineering. The synthesis, Zara said. It took 40 years to build, and it represents the combined knowledge of both our species. But it's never been tested with a full crew. Because there's never been a hybrid pilot before, Marcus said, understanding beginning to dawn on him. Exactly. And there's never been a human who could interface with Valdari neural networks. But I can't interface with alien technology, Marcus protested. Zara stepped closer to him, and he caught a scent that reminded him of ozone and starlight. Not yet. But the ship has systems designed to bridge that gap. It will create a neural link between us, allowing us to share information, thoughts, even emotions in real time. That sounds incredibly dangerous, Sarah interjected. It is, the Valdari admitted. The neural link has never been tested. It could cause permanent psychological damage to both pilots. It could kill them. But, without it, the synthesis cannot function at its full capacity. Marcus stared at the hologram of the ship, trying to process what they were asking of him. And, you think this one ship can stop an entire fleet? The synthesis is more than just a ship, Zara explained. It's designed to do something that has never been attempted before. It can create temporary rifts in spacetime, allowing it to appear in multiple locations simultaneously. With the right pilot team, it could engage the entire hegemony fleet at once. That's impossible, Sarah breathed. Not impossible, the Valdari corrected. Just beyond the current understanding of either species alone. But, together, human creativity and Valdari technology, it becomes possible. Marcus looked around the command center, at the familiar equipment and displays he had worked with for months. Everything about his life was about to change, and he wasn't even sure he had a choice in the matter. What happens if I say no? He asked. The Valdari's expression darkened. Then, in 72 hours, the hegemony begins their assault on Earth. Humanity will fight, of course. Your species always fights. But, conventional weapons cannot stop what is coming. Zara reached out and gently touched Marcus's arm. The contact sent an electric sensation through him that he couldn't quite explain. Marcus, I know this is overwhelming. But, I've been waiting my entire life to find someone who could do this. Someone who could be my partner in this. Your entire life? I'm 28 years old, she said. I've spent all of those years training, preparing, hoping that when the time came, I would find someone who could complete the connection. The Valdari have been monitoring potential candidates for decades, and you're the only one who has the right combination of skills and mental flexibility. Marcus looked into her eyes and saw something there that struck him to his core. It wasn't just determination or hope. It was loneliness. She had been alone her entire life, waiting for this moment, waiting for him. If we do this, he said slowly, if we try this neural link and pilot this ship, what are the chances we'll survive? The Valdari exchanged glances before the leader answered. The ship's computer estimates a 37% chance of mission success. The chances of both pilots surviving the neural link process are approximately 51%. Those aren't very good odds, Sarah said. No, Zara agreed. But, they're better odds than humanity has without us. Marcus felt the weight of the decision settling on his shoulders. The rational part of his mind was screaming that this was insane, that he should refuse and try to find another way. But, another part of him, the part that had always been drawn to the unknown, to the impossible challenges, was already calculating the variables. If I agree to this, he said, what happens next? We leave immediately for the synthesis, the Valdari replied. The ship is hidden in this system's outer asteroid belt. You would have approximately 48 hours to complete the integration process and prepare for the mission. And if the neural link fails? Zara's grip on his arm tightened slightly. Then, we die trying to save your species instead of watching it be destroyed. Marcus closed his eyes and thought about Earth, about the billions of people who had no idea what was coming for them. He thought about his sister and her children, about all the dreams and potential that would be snuffed out if the hegemony succeeded. When he opened his eyes, Zara was still watching him with that intense gaze. In her expression, he saw not just hope, but something else. Something that suggested that maybe, just maybe, they could actually pull this off. All right, he said quietly. I'll do it. The smile that spread across Zara's face was like watching the sunrise after a long night. Thank you, Marcus. I promise, whatever happens, we'll face it together. As the Valdari began preparations for their departure, Marcus wondered if he had just made the most important decision of his life, or the last one. Either way, there was no turning back now. In less than 3 days, he would either save humanity or die in the attempt. He looked at Zara as she discussed technical details with the Valdari, and, despite his fear, he felt a strange sense of rightness about the whole situation. Maybe this was always supposed to happen. Maybe this was why he had always felt like he was waiting for something without knowing what. Now he knew. He had been waiting for her. The journey to the synthesis took 6 hours in a Valdari transport ship that moved through space like it was swimming through water instead of flying. Marcus spent most of the trip staring out the viewport at the asteroid field where their destination waited, trying to calm his racing thoughts. Zara sat beside him, occasionally glancing his way but mostly reviewing data streams that appeared in the air in front of her with just a gesture. Marcus watched her work and marveled at how effortlessly she interfaced with the alien technology. Her fingers danced through holographic displays while her eyes tracked multiple data feeds simultaneously. Nervous, she asked without looking away from her work. Terrified, Marcus admitted. You? Same. She finally turned to face him, and her smile was reassuring despite her admission. But also excited. I've been dreaming about this moment since I was old enough to understand what I was created for. That must have been a strange childhood, Marcus said. Zara's expression became distant. I grew up on a Valdari research station. The scientists were kind to me, but they always treated me like an experiment first and a person second. I learned early that my value was tied to what I could potentially accomplish, not who I was. Marcus felt a pang of sympathy. That sounds lonely. It was. But it also gave me purpose. Every day of training, every hour of preparation, it was all building toward this. Toward finding someone who could complete what I was designed to do. And, you really think I'm that person? Zara turned to face him fully, and her gaze was intense. Marcus, the Valdari have been monitoring potential human candidates for 30 years. They've observed thousands of scientists, pilots, engineers, and military personnel. You're the only one whose neural patterns show compatibility with the hybrid interface systems. What if they're wrong? Then, we die during the linking process, and humanity gets destroyed by the hegemony anyway. But, if they're right, we might actually have a chance to save everyone. The transport began to slow, and, through the viewport, Marcus got his first clear view of the synthesis. His breath caught in his throat. The ship was massive, easily the size of a small city, but it moved with the fluid grace of a living thing. Sections of its hull pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that reminded him of deep-sea creatures, while other areas displayed the clean geometric lines that characterized human engineering. It's beautiful, he whispered. Wait until you see the inside, Zara said, and, for the first time since they'd met, she sounded genuinely excited rather than focused on the mission. The docking process was unlike anything Marcus had experienced. Instead of the mechanical clamps and airlocks he was used to, the synthesis seemed to embrace their transport ship, forming a seamless connection that felt more organic than technological. When they disembarked, Marcus found himself in a corridor that defied his understanding of ship design. The walls curved in impossible ways, creating spaces that seemed larger on the inside than they should be. Lighting came from nowhere and everywhere, a soft glow that adjusted automatically to comfortable levels. The floor beneath his feet felt solid but somehow gave slightly with each step, making walking effortless. The ship adjusts to its occupants, Zara explained as she led him deeper into the vessel. Human sections feel more human, Valdari sections feel more Valdari. But, in the areas where we'll be working together, everything adapts to find a balance between our needs. They passed through several chambers that Marcus couldn't begin to understand. Some contained what looked like massive organs pumping with their own rhythm. Others held crystalline structures that hummed with energy. In one room, he saw what appeared to be a garden, complete with trees and flowing water, except the plants seemed to be made of the same pulsing light as the ship's walls. Is this ship alive? He asked. Not exactly, Zara replied. But, it's not entirely mechanical either. The Valdari grow their technology rather than building it. This ship is more like a symbiotic organism designed to work with its crew. They reached what Zara called the heart of the ship, a vast spherical chamber with a walkway that led to a platform suspended in the center. On the platform were two chairs that looked like they had been sculpted from liquid metal, connected by a web of crystalline fibers that pulsed with soft blue light. The neural link interface, Zara said softly. Once we're connected to this system, our minds will be joined not just to each other, but to the ship itself. Marcus approached one of the chairs cautiously. Up close, he could see that it wasn't really a chair at all, but something more like a cocoon that would surround its occupant. What exactly happens during the linking process? The ship will establish neural pathways between us, Zara explained. At first, it will feel like having thoughts that aren't your own. You'll experience my memories, my emotions, my way of processing information. And I'll experience yours. That sounds incredibly invasive. It is. There are no secrets during a neural link. Everything you are, everything you've ever thought or felt, I'll have access to. And you'll have the same access to me. Marcus felt a chill of fear that had nothing to do with the mission. Everything? Zara nodded, but her expression was gentle. I know it's frightening. But, Marcus, the connection works both ways. If you're worried about me judging you for your thoughts, remember that you'll be seeing all of mine too. All my fears, all my insecurities, all the things I'm ashamed of. How can anyone be ready for that? Maybe we can't be ready, she said. Maybe we just have to trust each other. A new voice echoed through the chamber, speaking in the same calm tones as the Valdari on the research station. Dr. Chen, the hegemony fleet has begun moving toward Earth's solar system. Current projections show arrival in 36 hours. Marcus felt his stomach drop. They're early. No, Zara said grimly. We're running out of time. Marcus, we need to begin the linking process now if we're going to have any chance of stopping them. He looked at the neural interface chairs and tried to summon courage he didn't feel. What if it doesn't work? What if my mind can't handle the connection? Zara stepped closer to him, and her hand found his. Her touch was warm and somehow comforting despite the alien nature of their situation. Then, at least we tried. At least we didn't give up without fighting. Marcus squeezed her hand and tried to draw strength from her determination. Okay. How do we do this? We sit in the chairs, and the ship does the rest. But, Marcus, there's something you need to know first. The neural link doesn't just connect us for the duration of the mission. Once it's established, there will always be a connection between us. A part of me will always be in your mind, and a part of you will always be in mine. Forever? Forever. If we survive this, we'll never be completely separate again. You need to be sure you're okay with that before we begin. Marcus looked into her eyes and saw the same loneliness there that he had noticed back on the research station. But he also saw hope, determination, and something else that he was beginning to recognize as caring. Not just for the mission, not just for humanity, but for him specifically. Will it hurt? He asked. I don't know, she admitted. No one has ever done this before. But, Marcus, whatever happens, we'll experience it together. You won't be alone in this. He took a deep breath and nodded. Let's do it. They approached the chairs together, and Marcus was surprised to find that the alien technology seemed to welcome him. The chair adjusted its shape as he settled into it, molding itself to his body and making him more comfortable than he had any right to be under the circumstances. Ready? Zara asked from the chair beside him. No, Marcus said honestly. But, let's do it anyway. The ship seemed to sense their readiness. Crystalline filaments emerged from the chairs and touched their temples with surprising gentleness. Marcus felt a tingling sensation that quickly became a warm rush spreading through his entire body. Then, the world exploded into sensation. He was Marcus Chen, 34 years old, born in Singapore, passionate about stellar formation and theoretical physics. But he was also Zara, 28 years old, grown in a laboratory, trained from childhood to be a bridge between species. He could feel her memories flooding into his consciousness, years of isolation, intensive training, the weight of knowing that the fate of two species might depend on finding the right partner. But she could feel his memories too. His childhood fear of the dark, his joy at discovering his love for science, his deep loneliness despite being surrounded by colleagues, his secret hope that somewhere in the universe he might find someone who truly understood him. The connection deepened, and, suddenly, Marcus wasn't just experiencing Zara's thoughts, he was understanding them in a way that went beyond human comprehension. Her hybrid nature allowed her to process information in patterns that no fully human mind could follow, but, through the link, he could share that capacity. At the same time, Zara was experiencing human creativity in its pure form. The chaotic, unpredictable leaps of intuition that allowed Marcus to see solutions where logic alone would fail. The emotional component that flavored every thought, making even scientific analysis a deeply personal experience. The ship's consciousness touched both their minds, and, suddenly, they weren't just connected to each other, but to something vast and complex and utterly alien. The synthesis was more than a ship, it was a living system with its own form of awareness, and, now that awareness was part of them, Marcus felt his individual identity beginning to blur at the edges. For a terrifying moment, he wasn't sure where he ended and Zara began. But, then, her mental voice reached him through the chaos. "I'm here," she said without speaking. "Hold on to who you are. We're still separate people. We're just sharing the same space now." He focused on her presence in his mind and found that she was right. They were still distinct individuals, but they could communicate on a level that went beyond words. He could feel her emotions directly, understand her thoughts as if they were his own, and she could do the same with him. "How are you feeling?" she asked. Instead of answering with words, Marcus shared the sensation directly. Wonder mixed with terror, excitement balanced by uncertainty, but, underneath it all, a growing sense of rightness about the whole situation. "I feel it too," Zara responded, and, through their link Marcus could sense her relief that the connection had worked without destroying either of them. The ship's systems came online around them, and, suddenly, Marcus was aware of every component of the massive vessel. He could feel the pulse of the engines, the flow of energy through the crystalline networks, the status of thousands of systems he didn't even have names for. But, more than that, he could understand it all. Through Zara's hybrid knowledge and his own human intuition, he could see how everything worked together. The ship wasn't just a collection of parts, it was a symphony of interconnected systems, each one dependent on all the others. "Can you feel that?" Zara asked, and Marcus realized she was referring to something new. Through the ship's sensors, they could perceive space around them in ways that went beyond normal human senses. They could feel gravitational fields, detect energy patterns across the electromagnetic spectrum, and somehow sense the very fabric of spacetime itself. "It's incredible," Marcus replied through their mental link. "I can see everything. Now we need to learn to move," Zara said. "The ship responds to our combined will, but we have to work together to control it." Marcus reached out with his mind toward the ship's propulsion systems and felt Zara doing the same. Separately, neither of them could have made sense of the alien technology. But, together, their combined consciousness could interface with systems that required both logical understanding and intuitive adaptation. The synthesis moved, and Marcus felt the motion as if the ship were an extension of his own body. They accelerated smoothly out of the asteroid field, and, through the ship's enhanced sensors, Marcus could perceive their destination with startling clarity. The hegemony fleet was massive, stretching across space like a metal cancer. Thousands of ships moved in perfect formation, their weapons already charging as they approached Earth's solar system. Marcus could sense the cold, mechanical intelligence directing the fleet, and consciousness that saw the universe in terms of order and efficiency, with no room for the chaotic creativity that characterized human civilization. "They really are going to destroy everything," Marcus said, and, through the link, Zara felt the weight of his despair. "Not if we can help it," she replied, and her determination flowed through their connection like fire. "Marcus, can you feel it? The ship's weapons systems?" He could. The synthesis carried technology that worked on principles he barely understood, weapons that could manipulate space and time itself. But, more importantly, he could sense the ship's unique capability, the system that would allow them to appear in multiple locations simultaneously. "The quantum distribution matrix," he said, understanding flooding through him as Zara's knowledge merged with his intuition. "We can create temporary duplicates of ourselves across multiple dimensional frequencies." "Exactly. But, it requires perfect synchronization between us. One mistake, and we could be scattered across dozens of realities with no way to reunify." Marcus felt a chill of fear, but it was overwhelmed by a surge of determination that he realized was coming from both of them simultaneously. Through their neural link, their emotions were reinforcing each other, creating a feedback loop of courage and resolve. "How many duplicates can we create?" he asked. "Theoretically? As many as we need. But each duplicate requires a portion of our consciousness to control it. split ourselves too many ways, and we might lose the ability to think clearly. And the hegemony fleet? Through the ship's long-range sensors, Marcus could count the enemy vessels. 3,742 ships, he said. Even if we could create that many duplicates, we'd be spread so thin we'd be ineffective. But we don't need to match them ship for ship, Zara pointed out. We just need to disrupt their formation and create enough chaos to give humanity's defenses a chance. Marcus considered the problem, his mind working in patterns that combined his human creativity with Zara's hybrid processing capabilities. Through their link, he could feel her doing the same thing, approaching the tactical situation from angles that neither of them could have managed alone. I have an idea, he said. But it's completely insane. Good, Zara replied with a mental smile that Marcus could feel like sunshine. Insane plans are what humans do best. Through their connection, Marcus shared his concept. Instead of trying to fight the entire hegemony fleet directly, they would target the command structure. The fleet moved with mechanical precision because it was controlled by a central intelligence aboard the primary command ship. If they could create enough duplicates to simultaneously attack every major command vessel in the fleet, they could shatter the coordination that made the hegemony so effective. It could work, Zara said, her excitement flowing through their link. But, Marcus, we're talking about creating maybe 200 duplicates simultaneously. That's beyond anything this ship has ever been designed to do. But, not beyond what we can do together, Marcus replied. Through their neural link, he could feel the vast potential of their combined consciousness. Human intuition and alien logic, working in perfect harmony. Are you ready for this? Zara asked. Marcus thought about Earth, about the billions of people who had no idea that their fate was about to be decided by two pilots in an impossible ship. He thought about his sister's children, about all the dreams and discoveries that would be lost if the hegemony succeeded. Let's save the world, he said. Together, they reached out with their merged consciousness and touched the quantum distribution matrix. The sensation was like trying to hold lightning in their bare hands while juggling fire. Marcus felt his sense of self stretching across dimensions, splitting and replicating in ways that his human brain was never designed to handle. But Zara was there with him, her hybrid nature allowing her to process the quantum mechanics while his human creativity found ways to adapt to the impossible demands of the technology. They became a symphony of consciousness, playing across multiple realities simultaneously. The synthesis duplicated itself across hundreds of dimensional frequencies, and, suddenly, Marcus was piloting not one ship, but an entire fleet. Each duplicate carried a portion of their combined awareness, and, through the quantum link, they could coordinate attacks with precision that no normal fleet could match. Here we go, Zara said through their mental connection. Let's show the hegemony what happens when they threaten humanity. Together, they engaged the enemy fleet, and the space around Earth erupted in light as the battle for humanity's survival began in earnest. The battle began like a storm breaking across the void of space. Marcus felt his consciousness scattered across 200 different versions of the synthesis, each one appearing simultaneously throughout the hegemony fleet. Through his neural link with Zara, he could process the impossible complexity of coordinating multiple quantum duplicates while she provided the technical knowledge needed to keep them stable. The hegemony fleet had been moving in perfect formation, a mechanical dance of precision that spoke of absolute confidence in their overwhelming superiority. But, as the synthesis duplicates materialized in their midst, that confidence shattered like glass. Command Ship Alpha, bearing 27 Mark IV, Zara's voice echoed in Marcus's mind as she identified their first target. Through their shared consciousness, he could see the massive vessel that served as the fleet's primary control node. Marcus guided 3 of their duplicates toward the command ship, feeling the strain of managing multiple quantum signatures simultaneously. Each version of the synthesis required a portion of his attention, and he could feel the edges of his consciousness beginning to blur from the effort. Stay focused, Zara encouraged him through their link. I can feel you starting to fragment. Remember, we're one mind in multiple bodies, not multiple minds in multiple bodies. Her words helped him center himself, and Marcus pulled his scattered awareness back into a unified whole. Through their connection, he could feel Zara doing the same thing, using her hybrid nature to process the quantum mechanics while he provided the creative flexibility needed to adapt their tactics in real time. The first Hegemony command ship opened fire on their approaching duplicates, but the synthesis's weapons were unlike anything the enemy had faced before. Instead of conventional energy beams or projectiles, the ship fired concentrated bursts of manipulated spacetime that bypassed shields entirely and struck the target ship's hull directly. Direct hit, Marcus reported as the command ship's central core erupted in a cascade of failing systems.
Their command network is fragmenting.
Through the ship's enhanced sensors, he could see the effect rippling through the Hegemony fleet. Without central coordination, individual ships began making independent decisions, creating gaps in their formation that hadn't existed moments before. But the victory was short-lived. The Hegemony adapted with frightening speed, implementing backup command protocols that restored order to their fleet within minutes. Worse, they were beginning to target the synthesis duplicates with weapons that seemed specifically designed to disrupt quantum signatures.
They're adapting faster than we expected, Zara said, her concern flowing through their mental link. Marcus, I don't think we can maintain this many duplicates for much longer. The quantum distribution matrix is starting to destabilize. Marcus could feel it too. Each duplicate required constant mental energy to maintain, and the strain was beginning to tell on both of them. Through their neural connection, he could sense Zara's hybrid physiology struggling to process the unprecedented demands being placed on it. "How long can we hold this pattern?" he asked. "Maybe 10 more minutes," she replied. "After that, we'll either have to reduce the number of duplicates or risk permanent neurological damage." Marcus considered their options while simultaneously coordinating attacks on 17 different Hegemony vessels. The enemy fleet was vast, but they had succeeded in disrupting its coordination. If they could find a way to exploit that disruption. "I have an idea," he said suddenly. "But you're not going to like it." Through their link, Marcus shared his plan.
Instead of continuing to attack the Hegemony ships directly, they would use their quantum duplicates to create a massive gravitational distortion field around the entire fleet. By manipulating spacetime on such a large scale, they could trap the enemy ships in a region where their faster-than-light drives wouldn't function.
"Marcus, that's..." Zara's mental voice trailed off as she processed the implications. "The energy requirements alone would be astronomical.
We'd have to channel the output of an entire star through the ship's systems." "The ship can handle it," Marcus said with a confidence that surprised him. Through their neural link with the synthesis, he could feel the vessel's true capabilities. This is what it was designed for. Not just to fight, but to manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe.
And if we're wrong? If the ship can't handle that much power?
Then, we die in a really spectacular explosion, Marcus said with dark humor.
But if we're right, we strand the entire Hegemony fleet in normal space where Earth's defenses can engage them on more equal terms.
Zara was quiet for a moment, and, through their connection, Marcus could feel her weighing the risks.
Finally, she responded with determination that matched his own. "Let's do it.
But we'll need to collapse all our duplicates back into a single ship to generate enough power."
The process of reunifying their quantum signatures was almost as difficult as splitting them had been.
Marcus felt versions of himself collapsing back into his primary consciousness, each one bringing with it memories of the battle from different perspectives. For a disorienting moment, he experienced the sensation of being in 200 places at once, then, gradually the duplicates merged back into his single awareness. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. No longer stretched across multiple realities, Marcus could think clearly for the first time since the battle began. Through his link with Zara, he could sense her experiencing the same relief as her consciousness reunified.
"Ready?" she asked. "Ready," he confirmed.
Together, they reached out with their merged awareness and touched the synthesis's most powerful systems. The ship responded by channeling energy on a scale that defied comprehension. Through their neural link, Marcus could feel the vessel drawing power from the quantum vacuum itself, converting virtual particles into real energy through processes that his human brain could barely grasp. The gravitational distortion field began as a ripple in spacetime, a barely detectable fluctuation that spread outward from the synthesis at the speed of light. But, as more power flowed through the ship's systems, the ripple became a wave, and the wave became a storm. Space itself began to twist around the hegemony fleet. Stars that had been distant points of light suddenly appeared to bend and stretch as gravity fields fluctuated wildly. The hegemony ships, designed to operate in the stable spacetime of normal space, found their navigation systems failing as the very fabric of reality became unreliable. "It's working," Zara said, her excitement flowing through their connection. "Their faster-than-light drives are shutting down. They're trapped." Marcus could see it too. The hegemony fleet, which had been moving with unstoppable momentum toward Earth, was now scattered across a region of space where the normal rules of physics no longer applied. Ships that tried to engage their FTL drives found themselves moving in random directions, or worse, fragmenting across multiple dimensions. But the effort was taking its toll. Through their neural link, Marcus could feel the strain on both their minds as they channeled more energy than any living beings had ever attempted to control. The ship's systems were operating at the very edge of their design parameters, and warning signals were flooding their consciousness. "Marcus," Zara's voice was strained. "The power levels are approaching critical. If we keep this up much longer, the ship's core might destabilize." "Just a little longer," Marcus replied, pouring every ounce of will he possessed into maintaining the gravitational field. "We need to make sure they can't escape." Through the ship's sensors, he watched as the hegemony fleet struggled against the distorted space around them. Some ships were attempting to use conventional drives to escape the affected region, but the gravitational fluctuations made navigation impossible. Others were trying to establish communication with their scattered forces, but the spacetime distortions were interfering with their transmissions. Most importantly, Marcus could see Earth's defense fleets moving into position. Humanity's ships were primitive compared to the hegemony vessels, but they had advantages that the alien fleet had lost. They knew the local space, they could navigate in the distorted gravitational field because their drives were designed for normal space operations, and they were fighting for their home. "There," Marcus said as he watched human ships engaging isolated hegemony vessels that had been separated from their main fleet. "Earth's forces are engaging. We can start reducing the field strength." Gradually, they allowed the gravitational distortion to weaken. The process was almost as difficult as creating it had been, requiring precise control to avoid sudden collapses that might destroy ships on both sides. Through their neural link, Marcus and Zara worked together to slowly normalize the space around the battlefield. When the field finally dissipated completely, the tactical situation had changed dramatically. The hegemony fleet, which had entered the solar system as a unified force of overwhelming power, was now scattered across millions of cubic kilometers of space. Individual ships or small groups were engaged in dozens of separate battles with Earth's defense forces. "We did it," Zara said, her mental voice filled with exhausted triumph. "We actually did it." Marcus felt the same mixture of relief and amazement. Through their shared consciousness, he could perceive the ongoing battles throughout the solar system. The hegemony ships were still individually superior to anything humanity had built, but without their coordinated tactics and numerical advantage, the battle had become much more even. "The quantum field generators on their command ships are re-establishing communication networks," Zara observed. "They'll reorganize eventually." "How long do we have?" Marcus asked. "Maybe an hour before they can coordinate effectively again. 2 hours before they can mount a unified offensive." Marcus considered their options. The synthesis had enough power remaining for limited operations, but the massive energy expenditure required for the gravitational field had depleted many of their systems. They could engage individual hegemony ships, but they couldn't repeat the quantum distribution matrix without significant recovery time. "What if we don't fight them?" he said suddenly. "What do you mean?" Zara's confusion flowed through their link. "What if instead of trying to destroy them, we find a way to communicate with them?" The Valdari said the hegemony sees humanity as chaotic and unpredictable. "But we just proved that chaos and unpredictability can be incredibly effective when properly applied." Through their neural connection, Marcus could feel Zara considering the idea.
You think we might be able to convince them that humanity isn't a threat? Maybe. Or maybe we can convince them that humanity could be useful to them. Think about it, Zara. Everything we've done today has been the result of combining human creativity with alien technology. What could we accomplish if we had the cooperation of the entire hegemony? It's a risk, she said. If we try to communicate and they see it as a sign of weakness,
then we're no worse off than we were before, Marcus pointed out. And if it works, we might be able to end this war without anyone else dying. Zara was quiet for a long moment, and, through their link, Marcus could feel her weighing the possibilities. Finally, she responded with a mixture of hope and determination. The synthesis has communication systems designed to interface with any known technology. If we're going to try this, now would be the time. Together, they activated the ship's universal communication array and began broadcasting on all frequencies used by the hegemony fleet. The message they sent was simple but unprecedented in the history of galactic warfare. Hegemony fleet, this is the hybrid vessel synthesis. We request immediate communication with your fleet commander. We have a proposal that could benefit both our species. The response came faster than they had expected. A communication channel opened, and a voice spoke in perfectly accented English. Synthesis vessel, you have demonstrated capabilities that should not exist. Explain the nature of your proposal. Marcus felt his heart racing as he realized they actually had the attention of the enemy fleet commander. Through his link with Zara, he could sense her excitement and nervousness matching his own. Commander, Marcus said, his voice being transmitted across space to the alien fleet, what if I told you that the chaos and unpredictability you see in humanity could be controlled and directed? What if we could offer you something that no other species in the galaxy possesses? Continue, the hegemony commander replied. Innovation, Zara said, joining the conversation. The ability to find new solutions to old problems. The capacity to adapt and overcome obstacles that would stop other species. You see these traits as dangerous because they're uncontrolled. But what if they could be channeled and focused? You are suggesting an alliance between humanity and the hegemony, the commander asked, and there was something in the alien's tone that suggested genuine curiosity. We're suggesting something better than an alliance, Marcus replied. We're suggesting partnership. You have technology and knowledge that spans the galaxy. We have creativity and adaptability that could enhance that technology in ways you've never considered. Together, we could accomplish things that neither of us could achieve alone. As you have done with the Valdari technology that comprises your vessel, the commander observed. Exactly, Zara said. The synthesis is proof that combining human innovation with alien technology can produce results that exceed either species' capabilities alone. There was a long pause, and, through the ship's sensors, Marcus could see that the hegemony fleet had stopped firing on human vessels. The battles throughout the solar system had become standoffs as both sides waited to see what would happen next. Your proposal has merit, the commander finally said. But, how do we know that humanity can be trusted to use such partnership responsibly? Your species' unpredictability is precisely what makes you dangerous. Marcus looked at Zara through their neural link, and, together they reached the same conclusion. If they were going to convince the hegemony to trust humanity, they needed to demonstrate that human creativity could be controlled and directed toward positive goals. We'll prove it, Marcus said. Give us a challenge. Something that your technology hasn't been able to solve. Let us show you what human innovation can accomplish when it's properly focused. Very well, the commander replied after another pause. There is a stellar phenomenon that has been disrupting trade routes in the Tau Ceti system for 3 years. Our ships cannot approach within 2 light-years of the system without suffering catastrophic systems failures. Our scientists believe it is some form of exotic matter, but they have been unable to develop a solution. Marcus felt excitement surge through their neural link as he and Zara simultaneously realized the opportunity this presented. Send us the data, he said. Give us 24 hours, and we'll find you an answer. Agreed, the commander said. But, understand, if you fail, or if your solution proves inadequate,
we will resume our original mission.
Understood, Zara replied.
But, when we succeed, we want your word that the hegemony will enter into formal negotiations with humanity rather than proceeding with genocide.
You have it, the commander agreed.
Transmitting data now.
As information about the Tau Ceti phenomenon flooded into the synthesis's systems, Marcus felt a surge of confidence that surprised him. Through his neural link with Zara, he could already sense the beginnings of a solution forming in their combined consciousness.
Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Zara asked. Quantum resonance cascade, Marcus replied. The exotic matter is probably trapped in a dimensional fold. If we can collapse the fold without destabilizing the matter, we could not only solve their problem, we could show them an entirely new approach to exotic matter manipulation, Zara finished.
Together, they dove into the data, their merged consciousness allowing them to process information and develop solutions at a speed that neither human nor Valdari technology could match alone. Around them, the battle for Earth's survival had transformed into an opportunity to forge a new future for humanity among the stars. Marcus realized that everything in his life had been leading to this moment. Not just the battle, but the partnership with Zara, the neural link that had made him more than human while keeping him essentially himself, and the chance to prove that humanity deserved a place in the galactic community. Through their connection, he could feel Zara's thoughts mirroring his own. They had found something together that neither of them had known they were looking for. Not just a solution to an impossible mission, but a true partnership that made them both more than they could ever have been alone. As they worked together to solve the hegemony's problem, Marcus knew that regardless of what happened next, his life would never be the same. He had found his companion among the stars, and together they were going to change the future of two species. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but he was no longer facing it alone.